So I was asked to present our concept of a design strategy that we had when we put together an exhibit for the Boston Flower Show. Some of you may have been able to see it. The first page of the handout contains that picture of what we created. You could call it a rock garden, a Zen garden. You have to understand, first of all, some background of who I am and where Russ also comes from. For the last 25 years, I've been doing martial arts, Zen meditation. I'm an instructor of the martial arts. Russ came to our school and started taking martial arts with us. That's how we met and how he got introduced to Ikebana. So in our school, we practice something, mind, body, spirit training. Martial arts for the body, Zen meditation for the mind, and in this case, Ikebana, but we also have someone who does calligraphy, so that's for the spirit. So that's where our background comes from. So when we were asked to put together a large installation for the flower show, Russ said, I have this piece that I want to use. And this was the dry piece of wood stump. And that was the start of our design. How do we go from there? So we thought about it. We spent some time thinking about how to use that in some manner that would allow us to also show who we are as not only Ikebana people, but as human beings. So the next page, not exactly our inspiration, but you will get the impression. This is, we were in Japan, and we actually were able to go to some gardens, and we were inspired. I have books about Zen rock gardens and stuff. So this was our inspiration. How do we mimic this in our installation that we were going to create using that piece of wood that Russ got? One of the hardest things about understanding the concept of the Zen rock garden is there's a lot of empty space. And there's usually a rock over here, and there might be something over there. And there's a whole philosophical discussion about all of the training that goes into that and the emptiness of the mind, but there's form, but no form. But if you sit and just look at some of these gardens, what you get is a sense of peace. And that's what we were trying to exhibit. But it's just not a peace because I found this one spot to sit. It's because if you walked over here, you would have a different view, but it would still be peaceful. You came over this side, another view, it would be peaceful. So what our design aesthetic for our installation was to try to see if we could do something that is very 360 degrees, full of something to view that would give the continuing impression of what we were doing using rocks, sand, some flowers. So the next thing we did, if you look at the third page, next thing we did was just use some ideas about what we were thinking about. What were the sizes, the dimensions? What could we use as examples of material that we would put inside of it? So this was all the beginning part of what we did. It was all in the mind. The harder part is when you actually try to put it together. So I have a nice basement. I constructed some boxes. I mapped out a 8x8 square area that we would be able to use, and I put some things down there, and I went out to the back of my yard, and we have lots of rocks. I mean, unbelievable number of rocks. And picked out some rocks, and I put them down there. And then Russ came over, Manal came over, and we started talking about it. From seeing the visual. I am not necessarily a good mentally visual person. Some years ago, we built a house. And my wife said, oh, this would be good over here, and this, we could do this, and we could do that. And I said, I have to see it. At least put up some wood so I can see some of this. So to me, it works better when I can see it, because then I have a feeling about it, and it's just not a mental exercise for me. So we started working down in my basement with materials, and we decided how we were going to lay it out, what was the purpose of laying it out. And we wanted to be able to say, from this angle you can see this, from that angle you can see that, and we just started to build it up from there. That's how we went through the physical process of doing that. But there's also an inner process, from my perspective. And everyone does this as you're making your arrangements. You look at it and you have to feel good about it. And some days you fight with it, and you say, no, that piece of grass needs to go over here, and you fight with it. Who are you fighting with? You're not fighting with the grass. You're fighting with yourself, right? So how do you go about finding beauty in some imperfections? And I think that was one of the lessons we have to learn as we're building something big. Because it never comes out the way that you really have the vision to start it. That was our design philosophy, the approach that we took, the purpose of why we did it, our background of what influenced us. You want to make any other comments?
So I think most of us, we don't start out doing large format arrangements. So just the idea of how to get from, even something like this is large, but just a small arrangement that you do for yourself. Like, how do you expand that? And I think the process that Tom talked about is exactly how you do it. You know, you have some ideas, maybe you have some pieces you start out with. One of the key things he did, and what we wanted to do is similar to these Shiki boards, we actually wanted the base of the platform to be our container. So the platform covers are not that beautiful, but what Tom did is he took some, was it Malamite board or some kind of inexpensive board, and he painted it with like a matte color. So then by covering the surface, it actually became part of the arrangement instead of something that the arrangement was kind of built up on top of. And you know, it's very simple. We did hope to have flowers on our materials here, but there were none. So, you know, the Camilla, they just kind of drop off. So we had a lot of green, and you can see it's kind of feels like a monotone type of arrangement, and I think that contrasts with the dry branches and the stones and that little pop of the white area from the sands just really gives you very interesting visuals as you go around. And there's a little bit of, you know, form that goes into this. So, you know, if you kind of think of the corners, you know, you've got the subject is that dry stump, and then maybe the object is the large stone next to the Zen garden. Sometimes you only have two, but then maybe the dry branch, which kind of bisects the whole arrangement on both sides. kind of give some interest. So I think for me, the key was we didn't want those stanchions blocking the view of such a large arrangement, so we tried some rope. But yeah, that whole platform to me was the container for which the entire arrangement was built. So texture, line, mass, all those components, as well as color, really went into this.
That's all I had to say. If you have questions about that for me, or any questions for Russ about what he did, we're open for the questions.
Tom, I think this is just exquisite. It's just exquisite. And it's so edited down as far as meaning and life and style and whatnot. I just think it's extraordinary. And I wish I had some more precise questions to ask you. But so, for example, in the pictures that show the Zen gardens, where it's my understanding that the rock is the sea or the earth or something, and it's raked. So you wanted to have, your idea was to have, you could have filled up the whole container with white sand.
Could have.
But you chose to do these different levels and stuff. And
As we started to put together, we were thinking that people were becoming, and there would be all different heights of people, little kids, adults and stuff, and that it would be much more enjoyable to look at if there was more physical form. So we used tight size to do that. Some boxes were taller, some boxes were lower to the ground, some things were directly on the ground. And that way, whatever approach you came to the installation itself, you would be able to appreciate it from that view. So you could be down here and have a different view, not just us adults who were up here. That was one of the considerations we had.
And this stump, where did you get that stump?
So Kelly's had a bunch of stumps months before, and I wanted to do something with this stump. I just wanted to do something. I was going to call people that have clear land, see if I could get one. And I went into the market, the flower market, and there was 10 of them.
Wow.
And I saw this one had the most bleached look, so I went for that one. It was a little bit scary though, because on the little cart on the way out to my car, a centipede this big came out.
Oh.
So it stayed outside of my house for a while.
Was it heavy? Was it heavy?
Actually, it was pretty dried out.
Uh-huh.
I think it really was a kind of driftwood that might have...
Maybe 20, 30, 25, 30 pounds.
Yeah, for the size of, if it was a fresh piece of wood, it would have been very heavy.
And the rocks that you have, you just got those outside somewhere. You just liked them. And the heads of what that looks like the moss, are they sitting in water?
Yeah,
That's the
similar.
dianthus.
Dianthus, yeah.
Similar to this.
There is moss. Underneath the taller stand-up rock, there's moss. Actual moss.
And right by the stump.
And right around the stump area. So one of I think the hardest things to do, this is just me talking, how to do something with less, but from a philosophical, living my own personal life, I'm a kind of a minimalist. And of course, I live with an artist who has 3 rooms full of stuff. So when I approach doing flowers, I also like to do less. That's just something that is more comfortable with me. But sometimes when I do less, it doesn't look as well. Maybe you need a little bit more pop. One of the things when we had to do the arrangement for the Emperor's birthday celebration this February, Hiroko Sensei said to me, "You're going to do it?" I said, "Okay, whatever." She said, "We're going to do this." And I said, "Okay, fine. I know how to do that form." And then I started to do the form. He says, "No, you need more. You need more." And all of a sudden it became this big thing, which is I'm not comfortable with. So it was a lesson for me also. So if you like lots of stuff, try doing something minimal to see if you can appreciate it. You had a question?
No comment. It was an extremely successful exhibit. It was just beautiful. I just felt like I wanted to walk into the middle of it and just stood there for a long time, just being mesmerized by the simplicity. It was just wonderful.
Now this is, I have to ask this question, but it's so obvious, but I have to ask it. You would never, ever put that stump in the middle. You'd always put it over to the side, because that's the Japanese way to do
A
it.
little bit askew.
Yeah. And is there anything particularly Ohara about this? Or is this comes from,
Well, actually, I'm going to take back my first comment about the stump. It could, so one thing I was thinking is we had used that same rectangular container last year where we had the Monstera in there. And I think you could, but not in that particular place because of the way the lantern plays with everything. You could have it in the center and kind of have this big, almost tree-like, with additional material coming out.
We were
So I think
thinking
you
of having
could
it
do
tall.
that. Yeah. But we stayed low because we knew we had to deal with that ceiling. Sorry.
Is there anything particular about Ohara? Not form-wise. Maybe the aesthetic of trying to be more natural.
So, like in part of the process, like there was concept, there were certain materials, there was some assembly, but at the very end, Hiroko Matsuyama Sensei was there and she helped us put everything together. So even things that Manal, Tom, and I had thought we were going to do, something shifted the last minute. So I think like anything in Ikebana, you have to be ready for the unexpected and small changes. So I think we have to give a lot of credit to her for the kind of the finishing
The
touches.
finals, the blessing. Yes.
So some of the like free style has been a little bit more defined this year. So there's two kinds of free expression. One kind where plant material are used kind of with their natural beauty, so not a lot of manipulation to it, you know, like some people make patterns out of the material or break the material, that kind of thing. So more natural, so we can do that, where it doesn't conform to a form. You can do similar to what we see in other schools where you do a very unnatural thing with the material. This is like more high-level training for us. And then there's a type that could be plant material, could be non-plant material, which is sculptural. Kind of feel like this is almost like this, in that probably not perfect, in that it's not purely one of those three potential styles. It's a little bit of a combination, but probably a little bit more sculptural, in my opinion, than truly like natural. I mean, like Tom said, it's a Zen garden, the stones and the sand, but it's like a temple grounds that we're trying to portray. Now, the year before we did, Tom spent a lot of time making twine balls, you know, to kind of give shape. And I think one of the inspirations was Hiroko said, you want to do something cool. So, I mean, you really, it would be tough, although I've seen Headmaster do it, to do like a shake moribana on something of that scale. You would need like a tree, or a couple trees and bushes, and a little bit more beyond what our budget would handle.
Where is the stump right now?
It's actually in my house, on top of a shelf. I hope there's no more centipedes in it. It's waiting for whatever it's going to do next.
Just don't turn it into a coffee table.
Yeah, I know, right?